It's been a weird week in regards to Call of Duty. Details about the future content, official delays, and more, and well, it only got weirder as an insider revealed an honestly kind of shocking potential development in the future of Call of Duty as a whole. So, drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things COD and other FPS content. Pending no changes to the content calendar here, we do have a few videos going up that are not Call of Duty the next few days, so I'd love to have you in the community if you'd like to check it out. But anyways, let's get into it. So, today's details come from the Ghost of Hope, an insider whose track record is pretty solid. So at the very least, I'd say it's worth hearing out and considering. Though, as a reminder, we're talking far future here. Things of this nature with leaks, especially this far out, are subject to change. But gameplay details for Modern Warfare 4, as it seems to be, or COD 2026, were given from the Ghost of Hope, where he stated exclusive details for Modern Warfare 4. No old support, traditional UI like older games, more traditional than Black Ops 6 at least, engine being overhauled to address Modern Warfare 2 problems like visual clutter, etc., being developed on dev kits for the next Xbox, and no Warzone 3 if Verdansk fails to retain current and returning players, with further elaborations saying that it's hanging in the balance of whether Verdansk succeeds or not, and it's a matter of resources versus the payout in terms of player counts. So definitely a lot to unpack here. Firstly, we're gonna get to the big one, of course, but let's start from the top. No old gen support. This, I think it's time. We talked about it the other day. There's only so much that you can do feasibly in the matter of development. Like, how can you continue to push the boundaries and make a better and better product in terms of what you have on offer with hardware if you're always limiting yourself to hardware ceilings that could have to include products potentially from 2013, like my original Xbox One is from. I can play Black Ops 6 on my Xbox One from 2013. Like, fun fact, in Blackout, some of the reasons why you had, if you remember, some seasons or events where there wasn't even glass in the building windows, that was literally due to hardware constraints of last-gen VRAM. It was pushing it to the limit to the point where the build became unstable, so they just removed the glass to gain that space back for the performance of the game. And that was on last generation, before PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. So just imagine now that discrepancy here, how much you're stretching it or withholding the experience from last gen because of these constraints. Also, it's being stated it's developed for the next Xbox. So this is what I think a lot of people will misinterpret, and perhaps the ironic part is that maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but the next Xbox I would say refers to the mid-life cycle console, like an Xbox One X or a PlayStation Slim or Pro of the past. 2026 would be too quick for a generational jump, but in line with prior generational splits, erring on the side of closer to the next generation, but not quite there yet, offering some substantial hardware to tide us over to the next generation, but not quite that next generation leap. That's what I think this means, and so it's not ceasing support for things like the current PlayStation 5 or Series X or S, but rather ceasing support for the console of the last generation, like the base Xbox One, One S, One X, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 4 Pro or Slim. All that being said, this might be the next game that actually showcases the next step in what the tech can do, which I've had my complaints for Infinity Ward in the past, plenty, but one thing you'll never hear me complain about is their art team and their utilization of the tech at hand to make the game look great. I still remember the pre-briefing before Modern Warfare 2019 was revealed that they brought us out of the studio before the game was revealed, literally broke down layer by layer things in their theater room, like the composition of the graphics, of the audio. Audio is actually super cool. They isolated each individual layer from each shot, reverberation and echo off the Piccadilly Underground tiling versus out in the open, the contact ping of the shell casings hitting the ground, all that kind of stuff. Game design decisions aside, Infinity Ward always seems fully committed to the nerdy kind of stuff, graphically and audio-wise, which I do appreciate and I enjoy personally. So graphically, I'd be curious if we do see that leap and bound above what we have now, and it was likely going to be similar to this upcoming year as well, as that's seemingly a continuation of what we have this year. Engine and UI overhauls are also to be expected. I again think this is much needed, especially in the UI department. Whether or not we get off the UI we have now with a COD HQ and go back to the traditional UI that we had for all the classic games, well, I mean, who knows? I feel like you can absolutely still have a COD HQ with a UI that isn't terrible, though Black Ops 6 is better. But speaking from an era of why did you even have to do this for multiple years, It felt like it should be said that you can have a classic UI and still have what you want with a COD HQ, have both those things. But, of course, the big one. No Warzone 3 if Verdansk fails. I'd love to be a fly on the wall here at this because, I mean, there's so many different ways my mind goes with this discussion. I think that many will immediately take this and run with the usual COD's dead talking points, and to some degree, it could be fair. Like, obviously, if they cease the support for something, yeah, it's not doing nearly as great as intended. But we're also talking about Call of Duty, where the games, as reported recently, have massive budgets, like terrifyingly large budgets, for what you'd think it would cost to make, and upholding Warzone, upending the progress done each year over year with a new title being added in, and having to course correct to that, well, that poses its own problems. The player counts are still well within the hundreds of thousands daily across all platforms of PlayStation, Xbox, PC, BNet, and Steam. The usual figures seen in the Steam numbers, yes, they can indicate trends, but it's still just a fraction of the player base that you have to consider. There's a whole nother wing of PC that's on BNet. There's two major platforms that are mainstream that don't publish those numbers, like PlayStation and Xbox. So whether by COD standards or not, hundreds of thousands of people is still an absurd amount of players. For me, I think it comes down to balancing that budget of what it takes to create these games and to create a new experience each year for Warzone versus the conversion factor, that return on investment for the Warzone year of support. Perhaps it's just not feasible to finance it if it's not going to be bringing in as much revenue as they expected. Modern Warfare 2019 game sales and Cold War game sales massively spiked thanks to Warzone's free-to-play sort of foot-in-the-door mentality. Give them a taste of the offering, but they can pay for the full thing. Which is where this becomes a bit paradoxical to me, because Call of Duty's reported sales are still higher in the worst years of this Warzone era than most of the years before it, with some even being the highest sales totals ever. Modern Warfare 2019 and Black Ops Cold War. Black Ops 6 also apparently giving a run for its money, but that's something that they didn't actually give figures for comparison, they just used this sort of marketing jargon. So if it's not maintaining the revenue to continue support, but it's still churning hundreds of millions, if not billions a year in sales and microtransactions from Warzone alone, well then what gives? I'm not saying I argue with the report, I'm just curious what's going on in those boardrooms and how we got to this decision, because surely if you cease support, you'll place a lot of the players who want to play the core game, sure, but you're also going to lose probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of players each year following that aren't willing to pay $70 for the full offering. Maybe the standard 6v6 multiplayer formula isn't for them and they just don't see any sort of reason to do that. So it's a bombshell in the sort of future reporting of Call of Duty that I don't quite fully understand. And then you mix that in with the recent reporting on DMZ, and it's kind of even stranger, where Hope ended up reporting what I'm hearing so far about the current plans for DMZ in 2026. It will have its own maps with dedicated forked version of Warzone's engine. It will share a map set with Ground War instead of with BR, so the maps from Ground War will be coming from the DMZ map rather than a Battle Royale map, and they're currently debating whether or not to make it PvE or PvPvE or both. So some of that we don't have to talk about, but I mean, Ground War maps instead coming from a DMZ map, I mean, would that be then the BR map being repurposed so that it's still kind of the same map, but you don't see a Battle Royale map in season? Kind of checks out. I mean, we ended up seeing this happen with the Ural Mountains map that later became Outbreak and the Fireteam offering, and what may very well be Avalon here again for this upcoming year. The forked version of Warzone wouldn't be a problem because if Warzone isn't a thing, well, you don't have to have that engine deviation. And then I guess there's the possibility that even more focus is put on DMZ at that point, potentially making it even free to play as the second sort of coming of the free offering for COD. Because with so many people being accustomed to free to play now within Call of Duty, it'd be weird to just kind of take that away. Warzone, for those that don't know, was initially intended to be the Infinity Ward Battle Royale, and developers anticipating a back and forth situation of Blackout to then Warzone and Blackout and Warzone. It wasn't until very close in the grand picture of Warzone that it became a free to play thing in the plans. So if they're this far out developing and having much more focus on DMZ, why could that not happen again? That would be fascinating, because the big thing with that, the big reason why DMZ didn't continue in Modern Warfare 2 and beyond, was that apparently Activision didn't find a way to make it feasibly monetizable. We saw some bonuses like additional operator slots or things like a UAV or extra armor plate satchel and bonuses for the shops, but that was kind of cheesy and was never really heavily as pushed as other areas of the game. So if you were to be in a standalone free-to-play offering where that was supposed to generate all that extra revenue, it would likely meet the same, if not worse, fate on the return of investment that we're seeing right now being debated with Warzone. I personally think DMZ, I've said it for years now, was the perfect entry-level extraction shooter, and I'd love to see something more come of that, but whether it's the replacement or even remotely possible and such, I mean, who knows? Either way, it's an intriguing set of thoughts to consider an entire world of Call of Duty coming up without the sort of inclusion of Warzone. Possibly leaping forward in technology with the graphics and everything, with leaving a console behind, but also potentially getting rid of what is very likely a split decision on the content offering. Here on the channel, I'm sure plenty of people love the idea of getting rid of Warzone, many of which thinking it entirely killed off Call of Duty as it has been for years, and I'm sure there's plenty out there that also think that removing Warzone could be the single worst decision the franchise could make. So I'd be curious to see where you stand on this. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below, but that's going to wrap it up. Drop your thoughts, drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Black Ops 6 and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.